I'm a 28-year-old woman, and this happened to me when I was 13 years old. I'm an adult now, and I'm still kind of traumatized, to be honest with you. For a little bit of context, at 13 I transferred schools due to a lack of money. The school I went to was a cheaper private school, because where I lived, the public ones really sucked. I didn't have any friends for at least the first couple of months. I started noticing this boy, Victor. He was always staring at me during classes, in the hallways by the window. He'd stare at me at lunch as well. It was a pretty everyday thing. I didn't really care though. I was at an age when I only thought about stupid kid stuff like dolls or whatever. Oh, one more thing. I was flat as a table back then, so I looked like a really small child. The girls in my class started saying that Victor must have a crush on me. That creeped me out, obviously, because he was 18 years old. Still though, I didn't really think much about it as long as he didn't try to approach me or anything. Things escalated quickly, however. Victor started to follow me home every day. Thank God I moved since then, and he doesn't know where I live anymore. The most annoying thing he'd do, however, was that he'd constantly ask his friends to try and talk to me and try to convince me to go out with him and make out with him after school. These talks would usually take about 30 minutes of them trying extremely hard to convince me to go along with this. Victor would be behind them watching the conversation like some kind of freak. Obviously, I rejected him every time. Being the nice guy that he said he was though, he spread rumors about us making out anyway. Nobody believed him because he was such a weird guy. The whole school knew about the events. The final straw though was when our school had to take a trip to a book fair. I was super excited. At this point, I had made a couple of friends of my own. On our way to this fair, I was on the bus with my friend. Victor was about 3 seats behind us. I could feel his eyes boring into my back the entire way there. Out of nowhere, he came and asked for my friend's cell phone because he needed to call someone. She handed it over to him thinking he was telling the truth. How stupid of her. He returned her cell phone not even 2 minutes later. She checked to see if he'd done anything and showed me that he'd secretly taken a bunch of photos of me. I guess this was his way of saying that he'd already done this at some point before. She got extremely pissed and went to go confront him. When she returned, she looked extremely scared and said the creepiest thing I've ever heard in my life. She told me that he'd cornered her and said that for confronting her, that when she least expected it, he'd push her into a bathroom and rape her today. The only thing that went through my mind was, what should I do now? I peeked over at him and he gave me this creepy smile. After this, I went the whole day looking behind my back, not leaving the side of my teacher or my friend. She didn't understand why I didn't want to walk around and explore at the fair. I was in alert mode the whole time though. Thank God nothing bad happened. When I came home, I cried in my room like a baby. This was at the end of the year, and thankfully I switched schools soon after. I told my mom this, and she told me, yeah, that stuff happens. It happened to me too when I was your age. I was so shocked about how this was such a seemingly common thing. I'm 28 now, and I still see Victor out on the streets. He's even followed me around a few times. I always walk in circles until I lose him, but sometimes he tries to wait for me outside stores or restaurants. I think about what would have happened to me in the book fair if I didn't have my teacher next to me the whole time. I wonder if one day he'll try to do something, or he'll just keep up this creepy behavior. My girlfriend's mother is a longtime heroin user and has been in and out of jail for my girlfriend's entire life. When she lived with her mother and her mother's husband, she witnessed physical abuse and drug activity often. She was forced to move out at a young age just in order to stay alive. She thought her mother was finally clean when her mother announced a new pregnancy. After getting over the initial shock, my girlfriend decided to try and be supportive of her mother, since she thought she was clean. That was until she overdosed while pregnant. At that point, she decided to cut all contact. My girlfriend is also a mandated reporter, and last year reported her mother and her mother's husband to the state since she knew it was not a safe situation for the baby. Unfortunately, the baby died in their house not even a month after birth due to an overdose with signs of physical abuse. Her mother was arrested for the murder of the baby and other charges as well. Her husband was arrested for child endangerment and other charges very recently. At first, the judge did not grant either of them bail. Eventually, though, her husband was granted bail, which he posted. We didn't know this until recently, which helped us put some of the pieces together. My girlfriend and I like to sit outside her house in the car and just chat and listen to music and relax together. Recently, though, there have been some weird black cars orbiting my girlfriend's house. We've also been frequently followed by black cars when we drive around. It's the same couple of cars that do this as well, not just random ones. At first, we thought maybe we were just paranoid. Everyone was supposed to still be in jail. Then, though, we found out the husband had been let out, and we began to doubt it was really insanity. The first major thing happened after my girlfriend and I had gone on a dinner date. We went home after dark and sat in her car for about 45 minutes when we noticed that black car passing us by every few minutes. After 10 minutes of passing us by, a different car drove towards us, flicking its high beams on just when it got close enough for us to see who was inside. It swerved into the oncoming lane, and I genuinely thought it was going to slam into the passenger side of our car. It sped away and we ran inside. After that, we started noticing these black cars more and more. This past Wednesday morning at around 3 a.m.-ish. That same distinct black van we'd been seeing pulled up outside my house. This was weird because my girlfriend and I live about 30 minutes away from each other in two separate cities. A man got out of the van and began shining a flashlight into my windows, scanning it almost. He shined the flashlight up to the window I was sitting at and kept it there for a moment. He walked 30 feet to an empty driveway, scanned everything for 20 seconds, then jumped back in the van and sped away. The windows were ice-covered and frozen, so I couldn't make out the specifics of who was in the van. It was quite strange though, obviously. A few nights later, my girlfriend and I spent some time hanging out in the car when we spotted a black van once again hiding behind another car parked further up the street. We could only see one headlight. It creeped by us as we sat in the car and tried to hide. My girlfriend lives between two dead-end streets. Think of a very blocky U. The van went up the first dead end, 4 ways on, and sat for a few minutes before turning around and driving almost into the other lane of traffic just to get close to us. It then went up the other dead end and stayed put. We thought it was weird that the van didn't just back out at the first one, instead opting to drive all the way up the narrow street and turn around. After a few minutes, we called a friend and recounted the story just to get an extra opinion. While my girlfriend was talking, I got out of the car for a moment to light a cigarette and see how far away the van was now. I was simply walking for about 15 feet before I got the worst gut feeling I've ever gotten in my life. I could see across the street from me, hidden in an area with no lighting, was a black mass much darker than the darkness around it. I assumed this must be the van. I decided to turn around and rush my girlfriend into the house. Later that night, we heard a bang coming from downstairs, followed by what sounded like a boot rushing up the wooden stairs. We locked the bedroom door, and I sat against the door with a baseball bat, hopeful that would be enough to barricade it. A few minutes later, we heard a car door slam before the sound of tires squealing and a car driving away. It was so surreal we thought maybe it came from the TV, but we realized we had paused it, and the TV in the next room was never loud enough to feel this real. I went downstairs an hour later to get water. There was nothing damaged or missing. We theorized that maybe they'd been trying to open the front door, but it was dead-bolted so they couldn't actually get in. My girlfriend's exterior wall doesn't face the road, and we'd never heard car sounds before. The next day, I was shoveling the sidewalks at my girlfriend's house when I saw the same black car with mud streaks on the tailgate. It circled the block around me about 4 times. I was able to see the silhouette of the man driving through the passenger side window. Each time, it was the same person in the same truck. My girlfriend lives in a small town, and we were able to catalog the entire neighborhood's worth of cars. The black van and the truck were nowhere to be found, though. Our theory is that someone is trying to scare my girlfriend into not further testifying, or flat out make sure neither of us has the ability anymore. We really just need more opinions. What do we do in this situation? Do you think it could just be a series of weird coincidences? I, 29 and female, grew up in a nice suburban neighborhood. I lived in the same house my entire childhood and only left once when I moved out as an adult. I always felt safe leaving our doors unlocked, windows open, going out for late night walks as a teen. When I was around 17, though, I noticed some strange things started happening around my house. My house was also supposedly haunted, so there were often weird noises and moving things on their own. It wasn't a new thing. This is probably why I dismissed my own experiences for so long. As a teen, I worked at a movie theater, and I did not work until the afternoon. I would get off at very late at night because of this. I turned into quite the night owl, and it was normal for me to stay awake until about 3 o'clock in the morning. It started off as my dog reacting to things outside. I would peek out my window to see what was going on and never actually see anything, so I assumed my dog must just be hearing noises and overreacting to someone passing by or something. Not too long after this started, though, I went outside and noticed there were handprints and a mark between them on my window, as if someone had been pressing their forehead against the glass. I didn't really know what to think of this. I had plenty of friends coming in and out of my house, and they would knock on my window sometimes as they arrived. My window was right by the driveway as you walked to the front door. This window was also very large as well. It started about 3 feet from the ground and went at least 8 feet high and 4 feet wide. The window and forehead marks were about 6'5" height. I definitely didn't have any friends who were that tall though, and everyone in my family was less than 5'6". Soon after that, I woke up around 5 in the morning to my car alarm going off. Again, I kind of dismissed the situation in my grogginess. This happened a few more times within the next few weeks though, always about 4 to 5 in the morning, and I began to get slowly more suspicious. The last time I noticed handprints on top of my car, as if someone had tried to crawl in through my open sunroof or something. After that, I started making sure to close all my windows and lock every door. This time, I thought maybe it was some hoodlums trying to steal something since everything had been open. Not long after the car incident though, things started to escalate. One morning as I was leaving to school, I found a small stepladder outside my window leaning against the house, as if someone had been looking through my window during the night. I had blinds that would move from top to bottom. Normally, I had the blinds closed on the bottom and left about 2 feet open on the top to allow sunlight in but still have privacy. When I looked at my window, I could see handprints and a forehead mark placed right above the opening of my blinds. Obviously, they'd been using the stepladder to peek in and get a good look of my room. With this ladder against my window, I pieced together the events over the past few months and realized I had myself a peeping Tom. I brought this up to my parents, but they did not seem to worry at all. In fact, they made no effort at all to do anything about it. Over the next year, I found the ladder against my window many more times. This person was using an old stepladder we had in the side yard that was unlocked. I would continuously put it back in the side yard, but it would always show up next to my window in the morning. I don't know why I didn't just put the stepladder in a place that was not accessible. To be honest, I was smoking quite a lot of weed at this time, and I was not really using my critical thinking very much. 2 other sisters lived with us, but they didn't seem to notice anything weird happening. It only seemed to be happening to me. About a year after I noticed the occurrences, though, we found my sister's bra out in the yard. We didn't have any explanation for this. At this point, I realized that somebody may actually be trying to get into the house when we were gone. With some success now, I became extremely paranoid. We would often hear male voices outside our front doors, but my family attributed this to the house being haunted. My sisters and I were often home alone, and when these unexplained voices happened, we would just go to our room to turn on some SpongeBob and try our best to ignore it. Again, my parents were aware of all of this, but they didn't care to do anything about it, I guess because they assumed it was just a ghost or something. The last incident before we called the police was just after a rainy night. We found bare footprints outside my sister's window in the mud. The screen had been fiddled with, as if somebody was trying to get it off the window and get inside. Once this happened, my parents started to take it a lot more seriously. It's kind of funny in a way. They didn't really care when the things were happening to me, but the moment my sister had an experience, well, it's time to report it. The police couldn't do anything about it though. They offered to send an officer every once in a while to fill out their paperwork in front of our house to make it seem like there was a constant police presence. This only happened one time though, and they never came back. Afterward, my older sister made her boyfriend aware of the situation, so they'd help and sit in the car all night and watch for this pervert to show up. Every time he would try and pull an all-nighter to catch this person, no one would arrive. Looking back now, it makes me think someone very close to my house must have been the peeping Tom. He must have been close enough to see we had another person watching out for us. After a few years of these experiences, my sisters and I all moved out, and we've not experienced anything weird ever since. It still bothers me knowing this person was never caught, and we still have no idea who it was. It frustrates me knowing it could be a next-door neighbor who we thought was normal, but was actually a pervert or something. This was all happening in the mid-2010s, and was before we had easy, affordable access to security cameras, such as Ring and Blink and such. I wish we had cameras at that time so we could know who this person was, but I guess there's no point in dwelling in the past. I will always have security cameras around my house, especially if I have young daughters. When I was a teenager in the 1970s, I had the coolest bedroom. The room was sort of a dormer design with the ceiling slanted downward, great for hanging some psychedelic posters. The bedroom had crawl spaces attached as well, great for stashing stuff when I was older. Best of all was the window that opened to the garage roof, easy to scramble out there without the parents knowing. Anyway, a couple of strange things happened to me in that bedroom when I was 13 or 14 years old. In this series of strange events, the creepiest thing happened to me one night in the spring when I was reading in bed at around 8 o'clock at night. I had the window open and the bedroom door closed. The rest of the family was home. I could hear them downstairs watching Happy Days together or something. As a teenager though, I was way too cool for that, which is why I was in my bedroom doing some really cool reading. All of a sudden though, I heard something big moving around on the garage roof. The bed was right under the window, so I could hear it very plainly. I couldn't see anything because of the angle though. That anything would be on the roof at all was a big shock to me. There weren't any trees anywhere close by, and the house had an aluminum siding as well. It's not like a cat could just climb up the side or something. I was thinking maybe a big bird landed on the garage roof. Perhaps an owl or something. It was a bit strange at that time of night though. Then it got real scary. I could faintly make out that whatever was out there was starting to breathe really heavily. As the breathing got closer and closer to the window, it started to sound more and more like a person. I could hear the breathing getting louder as they approached close to the opening. It got closer and closer. The breathing was so loud now. I was frozen in terror, huddled in the corner of my bed underneath that window. I wanted to leap up and run down the stairs, but I was paralyzed in fear. Whatever was out there was only a few feet away from my face now. I imagined them looking in through the window at me. Even though I could hear my family watching TV downstairs, I was so scared I was holding my breath, trying not to make a single noise. After a minute or two, during which I felt like there were eyes piercing me with their gaze, whatever it was started moving away from the window. I could hear the heavy breathing getting fainter in the night. And once I could barely hear the thing, still too scared to move, I started screaming bloody murder. My 2 brothers came running up the stairs to see what was wrong. I told them something was out on the roof. They rushed out to take a look, only to tell me I was full of shit and to quit wasting their time. Then they rushed back downstairs to watch TV. I closed and locked the window, shut the blinds, and moved my bed to the other side of the room. The next morning, in the light of the day, I went to check, but I didn't see anything out of ordinary on the garage roof. Needless to say, it was months before I dared to open that window again. What is up, guys? Blue Spooky here as always. It's been a while since my last outro, so I figured I'd do one again. Thank you guys so much for watching, especially if you made it this far to the end of the video. If you liked the video, please be sure to like, share, comment, or subscribe if you feel so inclined. If you have any constructive criticism you'd like to share with me, be sure to leave it in the comments below. Although I can't respond to every comment I get nowadays anymore, I still do read all of them, and I enjoy hearing your guys' thoughts and opinions, especially of your opinions on the stories in the videos. If you guys have some stories you'd like to share yourselves, please be sure to check in the description below the video. There will be links to all of my social media, including my Facebook, Gmail, and Twitter accounts. Be sure to send me a message on any of those, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. If you do decide to send in a story, please be sure to include in the tagline what the name of the story is if it has one, what type of story it is if it has a type, and how you'd like to be credited in the description of the video the story appears in. Also, please be sure to properly format and add as much detail as you feel comfortable with to ensure the most probability your story makes it into a video. I think that's pretty much it for now, though. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.